So my name is Peter Waugh. I'm with Engineers Without Borders. I'm with the national office. And gosh, we still have people coming in. Very good. So thanks so much for showing interest in this. We're really excited at EWB-USA about starting domestic projects again, because we've been on hiatus for domestic projects for a number of years now, and we want to, you know, all the good work that we're doing overseas, we want to bring that back home, and the chapters want to bring that back home, and now we have a way of doing that. So we're really excited about this. And just a little bit about me. I've been on staff at EWB for going on 6 years now. Before that, I worked as a consultant in civil engineering, water resources engineering, and structural engineering. And so that's my background. And actually, we've got, and we'll explain this later, but we've got a couple of partners in this endeavor, and that's why we call it the Community Engineering Corps instead of just EWB. So we are partnered with the American Water Works Association and the American Society of Civil Engineers, and my colleagues Lindsay and Melissa are sitting up front, and they're going to also be presenting today. And they'll go ahead and introduce themselves when they get up and start their part of the presentation. So I guess let's start with our mission and vision. And we're still working on this a little bit. We kind of, you know, the Community Engineering Corps is about, well, we had our kickoff right at the end of February, so we're still a really young organization. And we're kind of where Engineers Without Borders was in about 2003, which is things are not all everything's not worked out. You know, now with EWB, everything's worked out really pretty well. With the Community Engineering Corps, we've got a lot worked out, but there's still stuff that isn't. And, so we're still working on the vision and mission, but in general, I mean, our vision is a country where all communities have access to engineering expertise, regardless of their ability to pay. And the way we want to do that, our mission, is to bring together underserved communities with engineering leaders who volunteer to help those communities. And so let me just go over just briefly an outline of the presentation. I'll start with the history of the Community Engineering Corps, how we got to where we are, because it's really pretty important to know where we started to realize why we're doing things the way we are, because we are doing things differently than you will in your international work. So when you work domestically, it's going to be different. The aim is the same, to help communities, but it's just we have to work differently here in the United States for a whole number of reasons. And I'll go over what the differences are between the international and the domestic. But then essentially we'll talk about who we are, what we do, the project process, you know, how we can ensure quality projects are implemented in the name of the Community Engineering Corps, volunteer opportunities, and then example projects. And then we'll go over questions at the end. Yeah, questions at the end. And this young woman here is one of our first projects was on the Navajo Reservation, doing a water supply analysis for an area on the reservation that they didn't have much in the way of water supply, and so the Georgia Tech chapter was working on that. So a little bit about the Community Engineering Corps, and actually, who here is from a chapter that does work in the United States? So everybody, and who here has an official it's an official project, like a Community Engineering Corps? So there's a disconnect there between people who are working here in the United States and people who have official programs. And so what we're hoping is that during this presentation, we'll explain to you how to make it official, and everybody is going to have then an official project so that we don't put our organization at risk by doing stuff we shouldn't be doing. But so pre-2009, we had EWB chapters doing domestic projects, but they used the same project process as the international programs, which didn't make any sense at all. You know, it doesn't make any sense to put together a document just before you go on a trip if your partner community is across town. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. And also, we had chapters doing stuff that they just were not qualified to do. You know, significant construction works, and they didn't have a contractor's license. So we were worried about that. And so in 2010, we stopped domestic programs because we realized EWB-USA was being put at risk. The whole organization was being put at risk because individual chapters were getting in over their heads. And so then in 2012, we convened a committee to determine whether EWB-USA could safely manage domestic projects. And so we started that. And is anybody here, were they on that committee? I don't think so. But we had a committee that included professionals, students, faculty members, and they were the ones who were on that committee. And then in 2013, we thought, yeah, we think we can do this, but let's try some pilot projects because we're not really sure. 2013, we started the pilot program with 6 different projects. And then that went pretty well. And so I guess the committee, I and the rest of the committee, we told Kathy Leslie, we can do this. Then the question is, should we do this? And the answer was yes. But one thing that would make it stronger was that we could form an alliance with other organizations. You know, we're pretty student heavy, and one of the problems we have a lot of times is we don't have enough professionals helping us out. And that's one of the reasons we teamed with ASCE and AWWA. They have an enormous membership compared to ours, and it's predominantly professionals. And we thought we would make a good team. You know, we have a lot of students, we know how to do projects, and these organizations have professionals and the professional expertise. So we were really excited about this, the Alliance. And then in February of this year, we rolled out the Community Engineering Corps officially. And then October 2014, I guess that was last month, was when everybody who had their hands raised that you were doing projects within the US, that was, I guess, kind of a soft deadline of when you were expected to bring your project over and make it an official EWB project. And there are some exceptions to that, and we'll talk about that. So let's talk about some of these differences. And this will go to, if you kind of pay attention here, it will go to why we do things the way we do in the Community Engineering Corps. So the responsible engineer in charge qualifications, for your international work, you don't have to have a PE. You have to have someone with specific experience, but they don't have to have specific licensure. Here in the United States, you generally need a registered PE in the state where the project is located. And so that is, it's a fairly major thing, and it can be kind of a stumbling block for some projects, because we have a project now in South Dakota, and we have folks who are interested in working on it, but nobody on the team has a South Dakota PE, so we're having difficulty adopting that project out.
So what you're saying is that in Idaho, there's not going to be any domestic project possible if there's no PE.
if there's no PE,
Okay.
in general, there are some very small projects that might not need a PE in the state. If you don't need a PE in that area, then you don't have to have it. But in general, you know, even to sign an engineering services agreement, you need a PE.
Okay.
So the responsibility of the engineer in charge, you know, for our international work, basically, they make sure that the project is in general conformance with basic engineering principles. Here, I mean, the responsible engineer in charge, the person who stamps the drawings, if there are drawings, or who signs the engineering services agreement, make sure that the project meets the specific standard of care and has passed specific regulatory requirements. So it's a more specific type of requirement here than for our international work. Are the drawings, are they stamped? I've never seen anything we've done in a foreign setting stamped. So well over 1,000 projects, never seen an engineering stamp. Here in the United States, depending on the type of work you do, there may be requirements that the engineer in charge stamp the drawings. So the technical advisory committee that all the students dread going to, you know, with their 525 reports, you know, that they, for our international stuff, they review stuff for just general conformance with engineering principles. Here, they're going to review it for basically the same thing the responsible engineer in charge does, but specific requirements in that project area. And so it's going to be a narrower review and a more specific review, and probably a little more difficult review than for work that you do in the international setting. The professional liability, so we've done well over 1,000 projects abroad. We've never had a claim against us, which is pretty amazing. I don't think there's an engineering firm in the United States who's done 1,000 projects and hasn't had a claim against them. So the risk, the professional liability risk, is not as low here in the United States as it is abroad. I mean, we take on that risk as an organization, EWB-USA does, because we hold the professional liability insurance. And if you're an engineer in charge for a community engineering corps project, and that project is sued for any reason, it's just like you working in another firm. We stand behind you. We're the ones who take on that risk and have the professional liability insurance. The agreement you go into, we've gotten more formalized now with, even with our international work, but for our domestic work, what we're going to be doing is we have a legally binding engineering services agreement. So it's not like, you know, I guess it's the 903 form for our international work, this implementation agreement that you sign with the community that, you know, everybody signs it, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's not like anybody's going to sue each other. Here we have a legally binding engineering services agreement. The partnership, you know, over internationally, we just work with communities. Here we work with communities, or we'll work with NGOs that represent a community. Construction activities, for our international work, you know, students are always, you know, jumping in there and mixing concrete and doing all that. We really can't do that here. Most times we can't do that here because we don't have a contractor's license. You know, we're not qualified to do that here in the United States. There are times when we will do it. If the project is so small or so insignificant that you don't need a building permit, then we can probably go ahead and do it. Or Or if the client then hires a contractor and you ask the contractor if you can be part of the construction process, and they say, sure, go ahead, and they're responsible, then we can be involved too. But we're not acting as the contractor in any of this. Travel waivers and all that stuff, you know, that you have to do for every single trip, we don't do that. We don't do that for international, I mean for the national work. You'll sign a waiver at the beginning of the project, and then that's done. So the regulatory review internationally, generally there's none. Here, we haven't yet had a project where it's been a significant part of the project, but it could be. It could be a fairly significant part of the project to do the regulatory review. And the permits, generally none overseas. Here, it could be fairly significant. And you know, we missed, I missed one. And that is the fundraising. So I think kind of in a nutshell, what it comes down to is the work that you're going to be doing here in the United States, it's got some aspects that will make it more difficult than your international work. And that is, you know, the regulatory review, and it's kind of a little more rigorous engineering you do here. The easier part is it's going to be a lot cheaper. Because first of all, it's not going to, you don't have to spend $2,500 to fly to Ghana, you know, maybe either drive across town or across the state or something. It's going to be a lot cheaper. And also, for our international work, a lot of times the chapter pays a significant part of the capital construction cost. For the domestic work, we're not going to do that. We're really going to be engineers. You know, we're the community engineering corps, not the community fundraising corps. And so we'll be doing the engineering, and the communities will be doing the fundraising for the capital construction cost. So we're kind of just value added here. You know, we're part of a big team doing this, and fundraising is not our responsibility. So, and then just who we are. So we're this alliance of 3 organizations, as I mentioned, ASCE, AWWA, and EWB-USA. And now for what we do, and this is still me, right? We provide engineering services to underserved communities in the US, and believe it or not, that is state-of-the-art water delivery system for an area on the Navajo reservation, just because the getting water there is so difficult. The best option is you have a tank like that, and then you have a water truck that comes once a week, drives out there and fills it up, and that is the best option. So we provide engineering services to underserved communities. We're an engineering organization. We don't fund projects, we don't construct projects, and we don't work on non-engineering type projects. We will work on peripheral type things. So let's say you're working on a water system, and one of the issues is a rate study, and that you need an accountant to help you with that. We'll do that, you know, because it's related to an engineering project, but essentially we don't work on non-engineering projects. And now the project process is where I will give it to my colleague.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Prelowitz, and I'm with the American Society of Civil Engineers. I've been working with Peter and Lindsay on Community Engineering Corps. So I'm the staff contact for Community Engineering Corps for ASCE. I have a civil engineering and structural engineering background. I've been active in ASCE from student chapter days, younger member, the national capital section, and then switched over to staff after several years of consulting. So I've been with ASCE now for about 12 years. So I'm going to review the project process. The first step is for the community to complete an application. And they can do this in two ways. They can submit with no affiliation to an EWB-USA chapter or ASCE or AWWA section. They can just submit the application with no affiliation, or they can submit an application in conjunction with a chapter or section. Once that application comes in, we assign a domestic application review committee team to that project. Typically, that team is 3 people, 1 staff reviewer, and 2 volunteers. And we look at it for a few things. First, we look to make sure that it's aligned with CE Corps' mission and vision. We also look to see that the community that is applying is truly underserved, and we make sure that the scope of the project is feasible for us to accomplish. Once that is reviewed and approved, now we are looking for a project team, and the project team applies to adopt that project. And that application, you submit information such as who is going to be your technical lead, that responsible engineer in charge of the project, also other project team members, and you also need approval, leadership approval from your chapter. Once a project team and a community are approved and matched, then they work together, they develop a work plan and a scope of work, and that leads to the engineering services agreement that Peter referred to, and that is signed. And then throughout the process, we do have quality management throughout your project. And there is reports that need to be submitted, and they'll either be reviewed by staff or by a technical review committee. And these are the scope of work and the engineering services agreement are reviewed, as well as status reports, which have to be submitted every 4 months, and design reports. A design report is submitted anytime you are giving a deliverable to the community or a regulatory agency. Next, I'll talk about the volunteer opportunities. This goes hand in hand. I've already discussed a few of these things just going through the project process. But for chapters and sections, the volunteer opportunity is to be matched with a community. So if you don't have a community that you're working with, you can go to our open projects page on our website, see what is available, see who's looking for a project team, see what matches your expertise and skills and your interest areas, and apply. Or you can work with a community in your area or somewhere else and apply together. And just the notes at the bottom are reminders that 2 things need to be in place before you start on a project. And that's one, that it's an approved Community Engineering Corps project, and that you have been matched with that project and are officially approved to work on that. We also have individual opportunities. Those committees that we are talking about need volunteers as well. So we have the Domestic Application Review Committee. So if you're interested in reviewing those applications that come in, we always need volunteers for that. And for that committee, 2 years of experience is required in infrastructure analysis, design, management, or operation, and also membership in either EWB-USA, ASCE, or AWWA. There's also the Technical Review Committee, which we talked about, which is an essential part of our quality management process. And for that team that is assigned to a project from beginning to end, works through the project, and that's about 3 to 5 people, depending on the project. And for this committee, we require 4 years of experience in infrastructure analysis and design, and of course membership. And while it's not required, we do prefer, and we would like professional licensure for that committee as well. And then there's always providing mentorship for student chapters that need a mentor, providing that assistance and oversight and guidance to them. If you're interested in any of these areas, you can submit just a resume and a cover letter to our website, and we'd be happy to review it. Does anyone have any questions before we go to the next section of project examples? Yes.
I have a question about the scope of work. So I guess maybe it's like a draft scope of work in the application, and then later on you agree with an official scope of work when you do the ESA?
Correct. So you would meet with them and talk and get that honed. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
As a question, I'm from Alaska, and I know in rural Alaska there's a significant demand for like domestic water projects, that kind of thing. What would be some ways to, I guess, get the word out to communities or to advertise those communities and the opportunities that this is offering?
Do you want to talk to that for Alaska? We were just talking about that, actually.
Do I need, can I just talk loud? Okay.
You want this?
Sorry.
Sorry.
So just as for getting the word out, I mean, if you know specific communities that could use our help, you could go talk to them. Otherwise, you can also talk to, I guess, the Indian Health Service, the USDA, or the US EPA. They've all got kind of a responsibility for water supply in rural areas. So you can talk to them and try to get that worked out that way.
Is there somebody on your end, like I know we have a lot of native corporations, Alaska's kind of unique, we have native corporations.
Right.
Is there someone we could point towards in your direction, like, hey, who would we talk to on your end?
Sure. I mean, you can actually, if you just use that CEC info at EWB-USA.org, that is, for the time being, that will always be a good email address. We're getting a new website, hopefully this coming week, and we'll have additional email addresses. But for the time being, you can do that. Yeah.
Just quick. When you say talk to the communities, who in the communities do we talk to? Church members? Do we talk to the mayor? Like, who do we talk to at that community to get approval?
Well, I mean, the community comes to us, so it's got to be a representative of the community that asks for our assistance. And so likely that would be the mayor. Or in this case, we've got some example projects coming up for a tribal situation. A lot of times maybe it's the tribal council.
Okay. So it's just the important figures of that community.
Right, yeah. And so just like the international stuff, it's the community comes to us and asks us for our help.
How do you
Yeah, John?
determine if a community is underserved or not?
We don't have hard and fast rules for that. We have kind of, what we say is if the community could not reasonably be expected to hire an engineer to do the work on their own, then they're accepted. And so far, actually, it's been fairly easy for all the applications that have come in. The majority have been, yeah, they're needy. Generally, if it's a tribal situation, usually they're fairly needy. We had a couple situations inner city where we weren't really sure about it, but then we found out those areas were quite needy. And then we had a situation in California where it was for like a middle class neighborhood, and that was not what we do. So.
I have a short question. What's like the approximate time frame for one of these projects? Like the international is like a 5-year approximate.
So that's a really good question. One difference between the domestic and the international is the international, we do a program, a big program, get to know the community and stay there for 5 years. Here in the United States, we're really project by project basis. So the community asks us for help for a specific project, and then we will help them with that specific project. And it could be that our relationship with the community is 9 months, and then we've helped them what they need, and then we're done. You know, because there's so many more resources here in the United States that they can turn to for funding or whatever it is, that we don't need that long-term commitment to them. But we will stay as long as we need to, until they are able to maintain and operate the facilities that have been constructed. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just cut in.
Okay.
They can't hear the questions.
Oh, all
So
right.
if you have questions, I can come and give you the mic so that you can repeat your question out loud.
Okay. I mean, how about, can we hold the rest of the questions till the end? And that, okay, very good. And now Lindsay is up, right?
Okay, I'm happy to see so much interest. This is fantastic. This is a standing room only presentation, which is rare. That's amazing. My name is Lindsay Geiger. I'm with the American Waterworks Association on staff and have been working with Peter and the team at EWB to launch this great new program since what feels like the beginning of time. So we'll just go with October of last year. And so I wanted to show you a few project examples of pilot projects, projects that are ongoing right now, and some open projects that we have on the webpage. If you see your project on the screen, please don't be shy, raise your hand and share a little bit more information about that project. I by no means mean to steal your thunder. So the first one that we have up is from the Spirit Lake Tribe in North Dakota. This was one of the pilot projects that the EWB Central Houston Professional Chapter worked with this community to kick off and kind of show the proof of concept for the Community Engineering Corps. And so what they're working on now is a conceptual design for an additional community center that you can see the schematic in the bottom picture here. So this kind of shows you one of the different types of projects and how you can come in as a EWB chapter, student or professional chapter, working with the community to put forth and work on a project together. A little bit different here, we have a project in Louisiana. The EWB New Orleans Professional Chapter is working with the community of Conrad Park to mitigate their stormwater and flooding issues. So here you can see a little bit more depth and variety in the types of projects that we work on, and also speaking to, yes, we do work in urban areas if the need arises and if this community, which they were able to prove their need. So we're not just completely rural areas, we do work in more urban centers like New Orleans. And then the last project that I wanted to share with you is actually an open project, and perhaps one of the most unique projects I've ever seen come through a volunteer application. This is on the White Earth and Red Lake reservations in Minnesota, working toward or looking for technical assistance developing a fish emulsion factory. So help and assistance in using their fish waste to create more fortified fertilizer for their agricultural crops. And so this is an open project. So this means that if you click onto the webpage, same with your international projects with EWB, clicking onto the webpage, onto the open projects, you'll see this listed here, and if you contact us, we'll be able to send you more information, and you'll be able to apply with your chapter, section, and project team to work on this project with this community. So those are the 3 project examples I have to share with you a little bit more information and hopefully answer some of your questions about how exactly it will work here domestically. And I'm going to kick it back to Peter to wrap us up and to facilitate some additional questions.
Okay, so I think the way we'll do questions, maybe we'll do one of these that we'll pass around for questions, and this one we'll pass around up here between the 3 of us to answer them. So if anybody has any questions, and actually we have one person in the room who's involved with the Community Engineering Corps, and that's Robert there, who is a member of the application review committee. And so, did you want to say anything, Robert, but no, nothing? Okay, okay. You have a question in the back? Sure.
I'm on the tack.
Oh, yeah, you're on the, I'm sorry, on the
I'm Robert
I
Kirk.
didn't see you. Technical Review Committee back there.
Okay,
So-
if you can start by saying your name and which chapter you're with, that would help. So, you're first.
Oh, just a second.
My name's Stephen Mitchell. I'm from the NC State chapter. I had a question, kind of, I realize this isn't, you said not fundraising, that's not really a part of this. For student chapters, you're traveling domestically and whatnot, kind of what's that role of providing that travel money, or if we have to stay overnight or fly?
So, like our international projects, the domestic projects, you are responsible for the costs associated with the assessment and design activities. Depending on where it is, it could be essentially zero. We've got Temple University that has adopted a project in their hometown, and it's essentially zero. The Central Houston professionals that fly up to North Dakota to do the work, it does cost, and you're responsible for that. We're hopeful that we will have a grant process fairly soon, like we do for the international projects, but right now, today, we don't have that.
Just chapter fundraising?
It's chapter fundraising, but the fundraising activities will be, it's gonna be a lot easier because it's a lot cheaper than doing the international.
Thank you.
Here, and so just go ahead and wait till you get the.
My name is Dino Go from the Seattle Professional Chapter. You have partnership with Waterworks Association and ASCE. So if there is a project that our chapter would like to work on, and we don't have a PE or somebody on a specific water type of background or ASCE for that particular project, I'm just being hypothetical. So I know that do we have a list of the people with certain background from, I'm EWB member, so from ASCE that we can identify, or we just go ahead and fill out the application and we'll just say in the application, this is the person we're missing, and then somebody will be able to, or ASCE or.
So let me answer that from our perspective, and then I'll give it to both ASCE and AWWA to chime in also. But so for these projects, your project team doesn't have to be just your chapter. It can be anybody associated with EWB, AWWA, or ASCE. And so you can put a project team together, and if you need assistance, you can contact us at the national office of EWB-USA, and then I would contact AWWA or ASCE and see if they have somebody who could fit the bill. And did you guys want to chime in? Anything additional?
Sure, I think that would be a great way to get our members involved. So if Peter contacted me, I would see locally, we have our sections and branches throughout the country, so we would look at our that section that's closest to you and contact them and work with them to see if they have people who would like to join that team. And I think that would be a great way to bring ASCE and AWWA into the fold. Sure.
My question is kind of related to his in some way with the professional stamp. I know typically, like with an engineer, firm, if you need drawings in another state that you're not licensed in, you typically pay a fee to an engineering firm to review it and accept liability for those drawings. And so my question is on the professional side, professional stamp. On the professional liability for the engineer who's signing these drawings, does EWB carry some type of insurance, or is that wholly on the?
No, we carry the insurance for that. We have a errors and omissions insurance policy with the Lloyd's of London. It's on the EWB-USA website. You can see the whole policy. It's 1.5 million per occurrence or something to that effect. And if it's an official Community Engineering Corps project and you've been officially approved to work on it, then you are covered.
Okay. And then also, I mean, another thing that might help, I know typically getting a professional stamp in another state isn't necessarily difficult, just filling out a form and then there's typically a fee associated with it. Would there be a way of like maybe putting that to, like that resource for my state together for engineers looking to get licensed?
You know, I think I don't think we have that. I don't know, does ASCE have anything like that about something about how to get licensure in other states?
We don't. We typically refer to NCES and going to your state licensure boards because every state is different and they accept different things. So that is, you know, comedy would be an avenue to pursue, but trying to list it for the 54 jurisdictions would just be too much. So we would just look at that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, can I add on to that? I'm studying for my
Yes,
PE.
you can. Yes,
Thank
you
you. I'm studying for my PE right now, so I have some ideas about that. You know, of course, it's valuable for you to have your PE in multiple states, and there's like a list of like a table of which ones accept others. So that's through SEES, like you said. Yep. But I did have a question as well. Can I ask that?
Yeah, go for
it. First of all, this is it's really very exciting to be at this stage, and you can see all the interest. It's really cool. So could you tell us a little bit more about that stormwater project? So I have some ideas for a similar project.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, so is this the one you were talking about, John? The Holly Grove, Conrad Park? This was one where our project team was actually working as essentially a subconsultant to a landscape architect who had put together kind of a landscaping plan for this area. And our team we did a couple things. One is we did the topographic mapping, and secondly, we reviewed the plan to make sure that it had adequate drainage characteristics.
Yeah. Okay, so you reviewed it to see what the current drainage characteristics were.
Well, no, we reviewed. So there was a landscape architect who redid the grading and drainage of the area. We reviewed that for adequacy for the drainage, the revised plan.
Okay, so you're really playing the part of a specialized consultant.
In this case, we were playing the part of a specialized consultant. Correct.
So that's good. Okay, one example.
Hold on just a second. You have to speak into the mic.
Project. I'm Robert Prager. I was on the TAC. I was one of the reviewers. Important part of this project was they were greening this park also. So they were adding a rain garden and a lot of other stuff. So it wasn't just a simple, let's make sure the ditches are the right size. So it was really doing the whole concept, looking at roof drainage and everything else. So it was a little more than what Peter said.
Okay.
Do I just talk to it? Okay. Hi, my name's Liz Jensen from the Chicagoland Professional Chapter. I had a question about the requirements for the community that we're serving. So, of course, they're underserved communities, but do they, like for international projects, they're not religious organizations. You know, you have to make sure that it serves the entire community, not just a certain demographic. What are the requirements for domestic projects?
And so, very good question. And the first thing I'll say is on the website that we mentioned, our website, we have a section where we have, I guess, 3 resources for communities. One is an FAQ that goes through if your community would be appropriate, what the steps are, et cetera. Then we have the application itself, and then we have instructions to complete that application. But the work that we do domestically, similarly, it has to be the entire community. It can be an NGO and or it can be an NGO that represents an entire community, but the community has to be open to everybody. And it can be a religious organization if they're serving like a quasi-public function that's open to everybody. So if it's just, we don't do specific, a church needs a new playground, we don't do that. If there's a church that is serving a quasi-public function, say, as an orphanage that's open to anybody, then I guess we would do that because they are serving this function that the government is not serving. That's not going to happen here in the United States nearly as much as it does overseas. Overseas, we work with religious organizations actually quite regularly because they do serve this public function because the government doesn't. Here in the United States, that just doesn't happen that often. But if it does, we would work with a religious organization. Sorry.
My name's Craig Johnston from Pittsburgh Professional Chapter. I like to follow up on the question about the licensure in multiple states. One of my coworkers just went through that, and you need to fill out an application on NCES. It's similar to the PE application, so I think it's pretty easy to do, except in like California and New Jersey. So,
okay.
And then the question I had was about, does the technical review committee, do they provide reviews for permitting?
Well, we provide, the technical review committee reviews all work product that anytime before work product or an opinion leaves the Community Engineering Corps, it's reviewed by the technical review committee first. And so if a regulatory review, let's say a stormwater permit is required on one of the projects, before that stormwater permit application goes to the regulatory reviewer, it's reviewed by the technical review committee. Did that answer your question? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shivangi from the Rutgers University chapter. My question is, to what extent does the structure allow for like a continued collaboration between the chapter and the community organization versus like a one-time implementation?
What it comes down to is your chapter or your project team and the community agree on a scope of work. And once you have completed that scope of work, then your formal relationship is done. If that scope of work is kind of a long-term thing, I don't know what it might be. It may be assisting with maintenance of something, and this is a long-term project, then you would continue on the long-term basis with that community.
My name is Amir Omari. I'm from the Madison, Wisconsin Professional Chapter. Is the only way for the communities to know about that is through us contacting them and tell them about this if it's available, or how would they know about it?
So far, I guess we have tried to do PR for this. EWB has, ASCE has, and AWWA has. I think right now the most obvious way that communities would learn about us is through one of the organizations, one of our 3 organizations. Though we have had applications just come to us out of the blue. A group from the Navajo Reservation, they found out about us, I don't know, on a press release or something, and applied. And there was an organization in Denver, an organization that serves inner city tribal members, impoverished tribal members, and they also applied to us, and I'm not even sure how they found out about us. But, so we're getting our name out somehow, though through one of the three organizations, I think would be the best way of doing it.
Steven from NC State chapter again. I just want to ask a little bit more about the need that's present, and more, I guess, thinking in less rural situations. Does it only apply to things such as water, flooding, or sanitation, or could it, also be a community park or something that would benefit the community in other ways?
Right. Well, so Temple University, is Torin in the room? No. Temple University applied for a project, a community garden in inner city Philadelphia. And that was accepted, and it looks like a really great project. And so smaller projects are fine, kind of smaller, less formal projects are fine. And then one more thing I should bring up. There's a lot of chapters that do what we would consider team building exercises. It's something you do out in the community, a park cleanup or something like that, where there's no engineering involved, somebody else is directing the work, and you guys can keep doing that. That's great to do that. And you don't need to, it doesn't have to be a community engineering corps project, because really it's team building and it's chapter building type stuff. But if you ever offer an engineering opinion, that's when it has to be an official community engineering corps project.
Hi, I'm Alexa Miller from the Miami University Student Chapter. I was just wondering, I know that you said we could partner with NGOs and the community, obviously, but I was wondering if we had a list of established preferred domestic NGOs who could potentially identify those communities and certain projects we could be working with.
The short answer is no, we don't. Yeah, we're just not at that stage yet. We may at some point get to that stage, but we're not.
Hello, my name is Bill Malloy with the Philadelphia Professional Chapter, and my question is, how does this program differ from the EWB-USA Engineering Service Corps? There was a presentation yesterday, but I wasn't there.
Right. The Engineering Service Corps is for work. First of all, they do work abroad. They do not do work in the United States. And the Engineering Service Corps is really kind of a specialized part of our international work. And so if you want to do anything in the United States, it's the Community Engineering Corps. If you want to do anything outside the United States, it's not the Community Engineering Corps.
Hi, Adrian Bizarro from the Rice University chapter. So my question pertains to the student chapters in particular. It seems like a very big challenge for us, especially considering the permitting and finding those resources, as well as finding a mentor with a PE. What kind of resources does headquarters have to support the student chapters in finding what is the necessary permitting or finding a mentor that does have a PE?
So right now, if you're putting together a project team and you can't find a mentor who has the requisite licensure, you can ask us. We will go to the membership of the three organizations and try to help you out on that. We can't guarantee anything, but we have a lot of folks to go to, and so we're fairly confident as the program grows, we'll be able to find folks to help you out on that. And there was a second part of the question. The permitting really is what your mentor should know. If your mentor does not know the permitting requirements for the project, then that individual is not the right mentor for the project. There's a question back there.
Katie from the Research Triangle Professionals. In terms of fundraising, I've run into situations where we talk to a company who wants to donate funds, but they want them earmarked for domestic interactions. So previously we've used it for education outreach, stuff like that. Going off of what Stephen was asking about, it sounds like we could also use that for travel, hotel in this situation. Could we also, if we're lucky enough to have extra fundraising, could it go towards the project, or do we actively want the community to be putting 100% of the funds into it?
I mean, we do want the community to be contributing the lion's share, and I'm not 100% sure on that, because there's also limitations on the fundraising that EWB-USA can do and keep its 501c3 status. So if you would, I don't want to misspeak, so if you would email that question to me, and I will get that question answered.
My name is Tino Go from Seattle Chapter, Professional Chapter. We understand the EWB traditional project process, and thank you. And that is, at the completion of the project, we expect the community to sustain the project, to maintain the project. Of course, in these projects that I'm seeing here, actually these are people, these are community members who will be benefiting from that project, and there's no expectation or training that we need to conduct to train these people on how to maintain their project. Because in a traditional EWB project, there's that expectation. We have the project evaluation, monitoring, and also the training and making sure that project becomes sustainable. So how do you address that issue?
We have the same expectation here that that the community will be able to operate and maintain the constructed facilities on their own. I guess what we've shown, they don't have really significant operation and maintenance requirements. Though there might be for, let's say we do a water system for a community, the operation and maintenance of that is going to be a significant part of the design aspect. So what we have so far, though, within the Community Engineering Corps is not any kind of we haven't had any projects that require significant operation and maintenance.
But in the future, you might end up with a solar project or something like a solar pump. And anything that we do, like the way we do it right now, I mean, we have certain projects where there's an expectation for the community to have members who will, maintain the upkeep of that.
Here in the United States, I don't know if you need community members to do that, or what you need in general is what happens here in the United States. You need the community members to be rich enough to be able to hire the maintenance folks who do that work. I mean, we're not going to train the members on how to fix this solar pump. Most likely what we'll do is we'll make sure they have the money to do it, and then we'll point them to the folks who do that for a living.
Okay, we're out of time. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for presenting this wonderful information.
Thank you.